Patricia's face went completely red as she slammed her office door so hard that glass rattled. "You're joking, right? You're actually leaving." My resignation letter sat between us like a live grenade with the pin halfway out. I didn't blink, didn't raise my voice. I just folded my hands and said, "Best of luck with everything." She stared at me like I'd just confessed to burning down the server room. I'm Andrew Martinez, 48 years old, and I'd just handed in my notice after 9 years keeping TechFlow Solutions from collapsing under its own ambition. See, the thing about people like Patricia is they count on your reliability, your quiet competence, your willingness to fix things without making noise. A booty they never prepare for the moment, when the guy who actually runs everything had enough. Patricia wasn't really the beginning of this story, she was just the loudest. Symptom of something that had been building for years. When I joined TechFlow back in 2015, I didn't come in making big promises or talking about disrupting anything while other department heads were busy posting LinkedIn articles about synergy and innovation. I was the one actually building the systems that kept the lights on. When our European compliance integration went completely sideways in Q2, it was me who reversed engineered the broken system connections and pushed a fix at T3 AM with zero fanfare. When the CFO demanded we pivot to cloud-native architecture to impress the board, I mapped the entire migration path and managed our legacy dependencies without a single minute of downtime. They started calling me the backbone because nothing moved in that company unless he touched IT first, and honestly, I didn't mind at first. Liked the satisfaction of building things that lasted. I liked knowing I could handle chaos without needing a megaphone or a fancy title. But you do that long enough, and something changes. The same people who used to say you saved our necks start saying you're just... The ones who used to pull you into emergency meetings start sending your calendar invites to junior staff for coverage. Patricia wasn't always like that, back when she was just VP. She'd stop by my desk and say things like, "I honestly don't know how you keep IT all running, but thank God you do." Then came her CEO promotion, and slowly the gratitude turned into expectation. Every quarter became more demands. LESS appreciation. She'd swing by my desk and bark things like, "Finance needs those system reports revised by 6, without even a hello. I didn't complain, but I did keep records. Every project, every deliverable, every last-minute change she dumped on my desk and expected me to just handle. Not for revenge, not at first, just for clarity. Because I'd watched too many guys like me get swallowed up by their own competence. No title bumps, no real recognition, just thanks. You're a lifesaver until the next crisis. I kept a folder on my desktop with timestamps, email chains, screenshots of project handoffs with her approval signatures. Here's the thing. When you've been doing this for 9 years, you learn that memory fades, but documentation doesn't. And when the big one hit, the 12.4 million system migration that nobody else wanted to touch, I took it on. They said IT was career suicide. 3 platforms, 2 time zones, and a hostile client with their own IT team breathing down our necks. I said yes, without hesitation. 6 months later, I handed Patricia the final report. On time, under budget, 0 critical issues. Her handshake was weak, and she wouldn't look me in the eye. "Done more than anyone could have asked," she muttered. "Promotions in the works? Just be patient." I nodded. By then, I already knew better, because I'd finally learned the unwritten rule of corporate life. If they think you'll stay no matter what, they'll give you exactly that. Nothing. But here's what really got me. I didn't even hear about the promotion from Patricia. I heard it from Lisa in HR, who cornered me by the coffee machine one Tuesday morning with this careful smile. "Congrats on your new boss, I guess." "New boss?" She tilted her head. "Oh, Patricia didn't tell you. They just announced Brandon Wilson as the new CTO. Thought you'd be in the loop." I opened my laptop right there in the break room. The company announcement was pinned at the top of our communications channel, excited to welcome Brandon Wilson as our new Chief Technology Officer. Brandon, 6 months ago. He was a McKinsey consultant with a PowerPoint deck and a habit of explaining my own systems back to me. Brandon, who called our cloud infrastructure the computer stuff in budget meetings and thought Agile was a management philosophy. Brandon, who played golf with Patricia's husband every weekend and once told me in a planning session, "Let's not get too technical here. You've got this handled right." Before leaving early for his kid's soccer game, my hands stayed steady. I just closed the laptop and walked back to my desk. HR sent the official email that afternoon. I read IT 3 times. No mention of the migration project, no acknowledgement of the infrastructure I'd built from scratch. Just, "Brandon brings fresh perspectives to our technology strategy." Please join us in welcoming him to this leadership role. Patricia didn't even call, but 2 days later, she showed up at my desk with a Starbucks cup and this fake grin. Hey, don't take this personally, she said, pushing the coffee toward me. This isn't about you. IT's about optics. Brandon's got that external consultant expense makes the board comfortable. I stared at the cup. Did the board see the migration numbers? She waved her hand. Sure. But this decision was already moving. These things happen fast in corporate. Then came the line I'll never forget. You're essential regardless of title. Promotions don't define impact. That's when I knew she'd never intended to follow through. I went home that night and pulled up my employment contract. I keep everything, especially the fine print. There, IT was in Appendix C, Section 4. Successful delivery of Tier 1 projects under budget and within scope triggers automatic review for advancement within 2 evaluation cycles. It was right there in black and white, with Patricia's signature and a timestamp. I searched my email for promotion. 3 hits, the first FROM 7 months ago. We'll revisit this after the migration wraps. You're the obvious choice. The second, from 4 months back, we're aligned on your trajectory, just waiting on budget approval. And the last one, finish strong, and this position is yours. I looked at my delivery report, under budget by $440,000. Client, satisfaction score, 98%, average. Resolution time for integration issues. Under 5 hours, every metric exceeded every deadline met. I thought I'd feel angry, but it was worse than that. I felt stupid, because deep down, I'd believed her. I'd believed that results would speak louder than golf course connections, that performance would matter more than having the right last name, or the right Semba, covered gaps, mentored new hires, shielded teams from Petrikisner decisions. And when it mattered, when it really counted, I was just passed over. No explanation, no conversation, just a pat on the head and someone else's name on th.org. Chart. I didn't lose it. I didn't throw anything. I opened a new folder on my desktop labeled Brandon Wilson Transition and another one labeled Patricia Contract Review. If they weren't going to keep the optimises, I was going to keep my documentation. Every timestamp, every deliverable, every clause. Because the one thing Patricia didn't realize was that when you keep records for 9 years, you don't need a title. To make an impact, you just need the right moment. That Sunday night, I couldn't sleep, but not because I was second-guessing anything. I was going through my checklist one final time. Backup logs, compliance exports, key screenshots with Patricia's initials on change orders. She'd begged me not to run through procurement. Everything was organized, quiet, and bulletproof. My resignation wasn't some dramatic manifesto, just clean lines and bullet points, effective immediately. Vacation days to be paid out per policy. Thank you for the opportunities. Wishing TechFlow continued success. No emotion, just facts. Like everything I'd ever delivered for them by 8:05 Monday morning, I was standing in Patricia's doorway while she stirred artificial sweetener into her coffee like it had personally offended her. I handed her the envelope. Appreciate the 9 years, I said simply, wishing you the best going forward. She squinted. What's this? I didn't elaborate. I just stood there while she opened it and read. First, she looked confused. Then something shifted behind her eyes, panic. Maybe the dawning realization that she'd completely misjudged the one person who never made noise. You're serious? She said, her voice too loud for 8 a.m. I nodded once. I've documented all project handoffs, system dependencies are mapped. You'll find everything linked in the shared drive. She stood up like that, while supposed to intimidate me. Hold on, this isn't how we handle things. We haven't even discussed your future here. You're right, I said. We haven't. I turned toward the door. Halfway out, I heard her scrambling papers rustling, drawers slamming, the unmistakable sound of someone reaching for a phone they never expected to need. She didn't call my name, she called someone else's. That told me everything. I walked past Lisa from HR on my way out. She opened her mouth, then closed. It's smart woman. By the time I reached my desk, Michelle from my team was hovering near me chair. Are you okay? She whispered, like I'd been hit. By a truck, instead of choosing toe step out of its path, I just smiled and started shutting down my workstation. It's not like they didn't see this coming, I said quietly. They just didn't think I'd actually do IT. I packed slowly, no rush, let them feel the silence. Around 10:15 meeting, invite, hit my phone. I declined without opening it and logged out of everything by 10:45. I was in my car and Patricia had left 6 missed calls. Funny how she used to let my emails sit unread for days. But suddenly she couldn't get through a Monday morning without me. I pulled out of the parking lot without looking back, because people like patricianly notice absence when I cost them something. They never realize the damage they've done until the person holding everything Tager finally puts IT down. By the time I got home, my phone was lighting up like Christmas, even though I was technically no longer an employee and locked out of all company systems. Some notifications still filtered through. Around 2:30 p.m., my personal GMAIL pinged with a subject line that made me laugh. Request for documentation, performance, track review, urgent. Legal had reached out to HR. Someone had finally asked the question that should have been asked weeks ago. Did we have documented promotion criteria for him? The answer was silence, and not the kind that buys time, the kind that smells like lawsuit territory. Here's where it gets interesting. From what I gathered later through the grapevine, they panicked. Patricia's assistant got tasked with digging through project archives, and that's when things went sideways for them. Turns out, my name wasn't just mentioned in the documentation. It was stampeded across every major deliverable. Risk assessment plans authored and signed by me, countersigned by Patricia System Architecture. Blueprints, mapped, tested, and deployed by me. Vendor contracts, client escalation procedures, rollback protocols, all me. Every final report from the 12. For migration bore my digital signature, my account ID, and in several cases, congratulatory emails from executives that now looked like smoking guns. Worse, someone in compliance had quietly attached my resignation to the monthly review queue. Standard protocol. But that PDF started a domino effect. Nobody anticipated at 3:20 p.m. I got a text from Jason in finance. Patricia's in full damage control. Legal just pulled compliance into this. Everyone's asking why we let you walk. Then a follow-up? She's saying she thought you'd circle back before making it official. Circle back? I stared at those words like they were in a foreign language. I wasn't a boomerang. I wasn't an intern floating trial balloons. I was the person who kept their projects from becoming compliance nightmares. And she thought I'd just orbit back like a satellite waiting for permission. They held an emergency meeting that afternoon. I wasn't there, obviously, but Michelle called me that evening. Voice low like she was talking to someone in witness protection. They're pulling every document with your name on it. Patricia's sweating bullets. The CFO asked, why nobody flagged your contract clause? Because Patricia didn't think I'd use it. I replied. And now she's realizing I actually read what I signed. Michelle paused. Did you know this would happen? I didn't answer directly because the truth was, yes, I did. I'd seen this play out before, not just to me, but to other quiet professionals who held departments together while the title holders took credit and dodge accountability. Act like you're replaceable until you actually leave. Then suddenly, you were the guy who knew why the financial systems couldn't sync with operations without crashing everything. The one who fixed critical issues at 2 a.m. without calling meetings about it. The person who made their entire operation look competent. They built the machine around me and never realized now they were pulling at every wire trying to understand why the lights had gone out. And all they were finding were digital records, chains with Patricia's, can you just handle this? Notes. And tucked away in my 2019 retention folder was a clause they'd forgotten about, but I hadn't, because I never built anything that depended on trust alone. By Tuesday morning, they'd shifted from silence to spin. HR sent a carefully worded email. There appears to be some ambiguity around whether your recent project completion meets formal advancement criteria. Ambiguity. That's corporate speak for, we're hoping you don't remember your own work, as well as we remember screwing you over. But I did remember. The milestone tracker I'd maintained for months. Wasn't some afterthought, it was a fortress. Every checkpoint, every approval. Every review had its own row with timestamps. And Perling's too, signed documentation. Not one deliverable was late. Patricia herself had initialed 12 of the 17 major milestones. I had screenshots of her typing good to go at 11:15 p.m. on a Saturday. During our launch window, I pulled up the final presentation I'd sent to the executive team after migration completion. Christopher from finance had replied directly, copying Patricia and the board chair, outstanding work, hope the company recognizes what it has? Guess not. They'd tried to minimize my role, but the audit trail wouldn't let them. SharePoint logs showed I was the original author on every document Brandon had copied into his onboarding materials. Even the permission history showed I'd granted Patricia Redoni access to Thefanal architecture maps. When I forwarded HR a zip file titled Project Milestones Confirmed, they went quiet for 6 hours. Then legal got involved. We are reviewing the supporting materials and appreciate your thoroughness. Lawyers speak for we stepped on a landmine. Patricia tried to contain the damage. She called from her personal phone, left a voicemail with this tone like I might have just been confused. Let's talk this through. We're all on the same team here. I texted back one sentence. All with legal, HR, and compliance. See, audit thread. That was the moment I clicked for her. This wasn't just a resignation. This was the part where 9 years of documentation started talking louder than that person, who'd tried to bury them, while Patricia scrambled to redefine what promotion eligibility meant, and HR tried to package their oversight as a miscommunication. I opened a folder he hadn't looked at in 3 years, 2019 retention final. I'd saved it after the Austin office disaster. When our Texas rollout collapsed under a mess of untested integrations and a contractor who disappeared 3 days before launch, Patricia had called me on a Friday night, practically whispering, I need you to fix this quietly. I did. Spent my entire weekend rewriting deployment scripts while their senior architect was at some conference in Vegas. I stabilized the region in 8 days. The following Monday, they handed me a retention package. Usual corporate gratitude. Bonus, vague promises. But one thing stood out. Clause 9 CID asked Patricia about it at the time. Her exact words, just a safety net in case we ever mess this up. She'd laughed when she said, I hadn't. I'd gotten legal clarification and pushed for a countersigned copy. There it was, buried on page 3, in lieu of promised advancement. Employee may elect voluntary departure and receival compensation, as though promoted and involuntarily terminated, including full annual bonus acceleration, 2-year stock vesting extension, and benefits continuation at promoted tier rate for minimum 12 months. Patricia's signature sat right below IT, clear as day, probably signed when she was high on adrenaline from not losing her job over Thoston mess. And there was the timestamp, HR approval, legal sign-off, all sitting in my records. Just overlooked my promotion, they'd activated my parachute. I wrote the email the same way I'd written system documentation for 9 years. Precise, thorough, unshakable. Subject, clause execution Andrew Martinez's body. Per clause 9C in my 2019 retention agreement, signed by Patricia Johnson, and processed by HR on October 15, 2019. I am formally invoking promotional separation benefits as outlined. Attached, signed, retention clause, completed project documentation, executive acknowledgments, message exports per clause terms. I am entitled to full bonus acceleration at KTO rate, 2-year RSU continuation, 12 months continued benefits at promoted tier value. Appreciate timely processing. Best regards, Andrew Martinez. I sat there for maybe 30 seconds after hitting send, watching the cursor blink. It didn't flinch. Less than an hour later, the red receipts started pinging. Legal first, then HR. THEN. Interestingly, Patricia herself, the same woman who once told me you don't need to worry about contract details. That's just legal boilerplate. Turned out, it wasn't boilerplate, it was leverage, and IT was binding. 2 hours and 17 minutes later, legal replied, we acknowledge a validity of your claim under Clause 9C. Your eligibility for promotional separation benefits is confirmed. Processing underway. HR will contact regarding final disbursement. Translation. We stepped on our own landmine, and you just handed us the detonation manual. They didn't even try to negotiate. No phone calls. No let's work this out. Because they knew the moment they saw the clause, this wasn't emotion. It wasn't revenge. It was calculated invocation of a contract they'd written, signed, and filed away. Thinking I'd never bother reading it. I read IT twice. Patricia didn't respond directly, but Jason forwarded me a Slack message she'd accidentally posted in the wrong channel. He actually kept that clause. Why the hell did I sign that thing? The reply, because he saved your job. In single quotes 19 you just forgot. I leaned back in my chair and closed the thread. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even satisfied. I was just done. They'd tried to play a loyalty game with someone who'd built the system that tracked everything, and all it took to win was showing them their own words. Dated, stamped, and enforceable. That was the moment I stopped being the guy who fixed things and became the guy who proved documentation beats politics every time. 2 weeks later, Brandon resigned. No Inoxide announcement, no transition, email, just a quiet line in Fridays. Org chart update, position vacant, interim leadership, TBD. Apparently, Brandon hadn't expected actual complexity. He thought system integration meant dashboard widgets and a few ticket reviews. He hadn't even known about the legacy dependency framework I'd built. According to someone still inside, he'd walked into the weekly client sync, and fumbled for 10 minutes trying to explain why the finance module wasn't syncing properly. The client asked a simple question: which background system handles backup failures during switchover? Brandon just blinked. I know because I wrote that system at 2:30 a.m. one night in March, when their open partner corrupted our fallback process with a bad update. When systems broke, Patricia had nobody left to call. That Monday, I got an email from TechFlow's External Relations Coordinator, a title they'd apparently just invented. We're exploring short-term consulting options to assist with operational continuities. We restructure project ownership. Your expertise would be invaluable. You be open to discussing scope and availability. I read it once, then twice, then I forwarded it to my personal archive and deleted the original. No response, no negotiation, because I wasn't going back. Instead, I took a different call, this one from the CFO of the client I'd migrated so successfully. Love you on our advisory board, not full-time, just quarterly strategic input. Remote work, very well compensated. I accepted by Thursday. I had system access and a seat at their next planning meeting, this time on the side that cuts the checks. Tech name was on the agenda right below vendor reliability review. The next quarterly meeting was virtual. I joined from my home office with coffee and my camera off. Patricia never showed. They sent some junior PM to read a status update that was clearly written 5-minute tespori the call. Nobody asked follow-ups. The seat Patricia used to occupy, where she'd say things like, "Our team has complete control," was now just an empty digital PLACEHOLDER. It was perfect. Really, they hadn't just lost a manager, they'd lost their translator. The guy who turned chaos into deliverables, who untangled executive spin from actual metrics, who made Patricia look like she understood technology when all she really understood was delegation and networking. Now there was nobody to buffer her from reality. I sat through the meeting and sipping coffee. Nobody mentioned me, but my documentation was still running their systems. My processes still defined their workflows, and somewhere in that broken org chart was a permanent gap, a role Patricia had tried to fill with connections. Instead of competence, she didn't just lose me, she lost the illusion that I was ever replaceable. The final report dropped on a Thursday. I didn't know IT existed until my phone buzzed. While I was on my deck, watching storm clouds roll in, Jason sent me a screenshot with no message, just, "Thought you'd want to see this. Internal audit summary. Q for operational review, marked confidential, but someone had leaked IT on page 9. Under operational disruptions, key personnel departure, trigger rod clause-based equity acceleration. Oversight acknowledged. That was it. No name, no details, no apology, but I didn't need footnotes. I was the disruption. Another text came 5 minutes later. Same source, $485,000 total impact RSUs. Bonus, legal fees, benefits. Patricia's underboard review. I stared at the message, feeling that particular kind of quiet that settles when something ends cleanly, not triumphant, not bitter, just finished. I didn't reply immediately. I poured another coffee and watched the sky turn from gray to charcoal. I finally responded. I kept it simple. Hope they learned something, because what else was there to say? Patricia had played short-term politics with long-term contracts. She'd thought titles meant control, that signing something and forgetting it mattered her, untouchable. But contracts don't forget, clauses don't. Care about golf games or board optics. They activate when triggered, and when they do, nobody asks who smiled in the company photo. They ask who signed what and who kept the records. I didn't post anything on LinkedIn, didn't need to. The people who mattered already knew, the ones who didn't were part of the problem in the first place. Somewhere, in some conference room, Patricia was probably pointing at pie charts and blaming unforeseen market variables. But the truth was simple. They'd promised something, then broken it in doing so. They'd triggered a cost they thought they'd buried in legal paperwork. That's the thing about quiet professionals. We might not make noise, but when we leave, the silence is measurable. In this case, exactly $485,000 worth of measurable. And that's how a 48-year-old systems architect taught a CEO that sometimes the best revenge is just reading what you signed. You see, they thought loyalty meant I'd stay quiet forever. But what they never understood is that the most dangerous employee isn't the one who makes threats, it's the one who keeps receipts and knows how to use them. Because in the end, the real power doesn't come from the corner office or the golf course. Connections, it comes from being the person who actually reads whatever Yanni else just signs.